Latitude Group is a residency and citizenship planning company. And with me is Christopher Willis, Managing Director, to explain this company. I'm always fascinated to hear what you're doing and what you're kind of seeing on the front lines globally. But let's start with an overview. Tell me about Latitude. What do you do?
Yeah, perfect, Jane. Thank you. So what we do at Latitude is we assist people with their residency and citizenship planning. So helping typically high net worth, ultra high net worth people who are looking for a second option. What's happening now is people are a little bit concerned about what's happening in the United States, and they want to make sure that they've got as many options as possible, and to ensure that they've got an option if they need it, should things go against the way that they want.
So when you say high net worth, how high?
Well, I mean, these programs come with a cost, right? Because it is by investment. So, the investment levels in the Caribbean, for example, would start at 100,000 US. So it's maybe a bit much for the mass affluent, but certainly achievable for the high net worths. But you can then go the other side of the scale, where you're looking at about €1 million if you're investing in Malta. So again, and those are non-recoverable costs. So it's going to be people who have the means to be able to put that money aside to acquire a second citizenship.
Why did you start this business?
Well, I mean, my background has always been in immigration. It's nearly 30 years I've been doing this, and it's been an evolution. I mean, the residence and citizen. I mean, most countries have always had a residence by investment program. So, but in terms of our industry, in the mid '80s, Canada was the first one to set up their immigrant investor fund. The United States followed in 1990 with the EB-5 program, which is known to many people and is very popular. And then, the citizenship programs in the Caribbean really started coming to prominence sort of 2012, 2013, because what happened in the Caribbean is in the original country of St. Kitts and Nevis, their sugarcane industry basically was not sustainable. So they couldn't rely purely on tourism. So the other commodity they had was their sovereignty. And because there was a lot of people from countries around the world that had very weak passports when it comes to travel, the market evolved, saying that people could make investments into the country, help them generate FDIs in exchange for getting the passport, which then gives them travel mobility and improves their quality of life.
Oh, interesting. So what are the benefits to, and I guess it's a golden visa, is that the right term?
Yeah, I mean, they're all sort of coined something slightly different. So a golden visa is typically what's referred to in the residency space. So people who want to get residency status, which means that they have the rights to live, work, study, retire in that jurisdiction only. But if they wanted to get citizenship, then usually you have to do a day count and spend a certain amount of time. So again, like in the US, if someone has a green card, they've got to spend 5 years in the US, then they can get naturalized as an American. The main difference is if you're only on residency status, you can't vote and you can't hold a passport. But for many people, the Holy Grail is actually the passport, the document, that allows you to travel and access different parts of the world.
So what countries are people looking at the most right now?
Well, there's Malta is always very popular, certainly from the U.S. side, because it's a citizenship program. It takes about 16 months, but it'll cost you about €1 million. But it does give you a European Union passport, so you have the settlement rights in all the 27 member states.
Okay. It's a nice place too. I've been there.
Oh yeah, Malta's
right on the
awesome.
Mediterranean. Yeah.
It's a little hidden gem for sure.
Yeah,
but what it does is that suddenly, if people their kids maybe want to study or work in Europe in the future, maybe they want to set up a subsidiary of their business, or they just want to know that they've got something comparable to the U.S. when it comes to spending a significant amount of time. Because the Caribbean passports are great, but they're not European Union status, if you like.
Okay.
And without wanting to sort of commoditize this industry too much, you do get what you pay for, right? So if you are looking top end, you're looking Malta at about €1 million. If you're looking Caribbean, 100, 200,000 US, give or take. And then you've got places like Portugal and Spain, which are also very popular, but the journey to citizenship is much longer. So in Portugal, for example, it's a €500,000 investment that you would make, but it's going to take 7 or 8 years before you would be eligible to be naturalized as a citizen. So what many people do is an actual combo, where they'll say, look, let me get a Caribbean passport so I've got a citizenship, and then I will have a long-term play in Portugal and eventually graduate to become a full European Union citizenship as well.
And you mentioned the cost, $150, $1 million. Is that per person? Say you have a family of 4.
Yeah, that would be sort of the starting cost for a single person. And then depending on the program and the size of the family, the fees will adjust accordingly and proportionally to the size of the family. But as a rule of thumb, adding dependents is not too cost prohibitive, because it's just a little additional cost, to ensure they're included.
How do people decide, besides the cost, what is the best place for them?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, because what we do, and we're very proud of, is our consultative process to really understand the client, know their motivations, their needs, their timescales, their budgets, and then we can make recommendations. Many people, it's the peace of mind, having a plan B or a non-traditional insurance policy, however you want to spin it. But it's, again, that option and being able to enhance their freedoms by having more choices. Because the pandemic showed that when there was a travel ban in the US, didn't matter who you were, if you only had a US passport, you were grounded. Your wings were clipped, you weren't leaving the US. And so many of the family offices in particular that we speak to, their principals said, look, you've got to plug this gap. We were exposed here. So it's now becoming a lot more mainstream and part of the, the overall planning strategies for many wealthy people in the US.
Very interesting. We've got an election this year, a very divisive country right now.
Yep.
I've heard people from both sides saying they're leaving if the other one's elected. So have you had a lot of interest in what are people saying about the election?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and now that, the two candidates are essentially confirmed, the primaries are done, we know it's going to be sort of part two of the Biden versus Trump, right? And many people are nervous. We have the uncommitteds as well, which are sort of putting a bit of a spanner in the works. And, it depends where you sit, but everybody's got a pressure point. It could be, when Roe versus Wade came out, that was significant for a lot of people. The recent announcements in Alabama as it relates to fertility treatments and such, and those infringements on people's rights is something that's making people nervous. You can factor in another mass shooting. You can factor in, Biden's comments about taxing the wealthy. It's not a question of take your pick, but there's a lot of things that can trigger somebody to look to have another option.
How many countries does Latitude work in?
Well, we have 25 offices around the world, and some of those are in countries where people are going to, such as Malta, and others are where people are coming from. So we have 3 offices in the United States. We have offices all over the world. So those source countries are very important. And I think one thing that's important to note is that getting a second citizenship doesn't make you unpatriotic, right? It is essentially making sure that you've got those options, you can enhance your freedoms and give more opportunities to yourself and your family. So that's why people are looking at it. It's just to make sure it's the better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right? And I know it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but it's very relevant to many people who have seen over the last 3 or 4 years instances where they needed to have another option.
Yeah. And finally, how can somebody find out more about Latitude?
Best thing is go to our website, latitudeworld.com, and we'd be happy to go through all the options for you and see if we can help you and your family on the new journey.
Okay, Christopher, thank you so much. Always fascinating to hear about what's going on.
Thank you. Thank you.